Hi everybody, this is your narrator Ali, and I hope you are ready to relax to our story today. Tonight we follow a boy called Boots, who sits by the hearth and sifts ashes while others mock him, yet who rides hidden horses of brass, silver, and gold up a hill of pure glass to win a princess and half a kingdom. Let the world grow quiet around you now, and come with me to a farmhouse high on a hillside. Chapter 1. The Vanishing Meadow. There was once a man who owned a meadow high up on a slope where the grass grew thick and sweet. In the midst of this meadow stood a small barn, built to shelter his hay from rain and wind. Yet, for 2 summers running, something strange and troubling had occurred. Each year, on the night of St. John, when the grass was at its greenest and deepest, the meadow had been eaten down to bare earth by morning, as though a great flock of sheep had grazed it clean. No tracks showed, no wool clung to the hedges, no beasts were ever seen. The man watched his harvest vanish and shook his head in anger and despair. When the 3rd summer came, he said to his 3 sons that this trick must not be played on him again. One of them must sleep in the barn on St. John's night and keep sharp watch. "We have lost enough hay," he told them. "This year someone must guard it with open eyes." The eldest son, bold and sure of himself, stepped forward at once. "You may trust me," he boasted. "No man, no beast, not even the fiend himself, shall take a blade of grass while I am there." So, when evening fell and the sky turned pearl gray, he walked up to the barn, lay down on the hay, and waited. For a while all was still. Then, near midnight, came a rumble under the earth and a clatter in the air. The barn shook as if a great hand had seized it. The walls groaned, the roof beams creaked, the floor trembled under the lad. His courage melted. He leapt up, flung open the door, and ran as fast as his legs would carry him, never once daring to glance back until he stood panting in his own kitchen. Behind him, on the hill, the unseen thing went on with its work. In the morning, when his father went up, the meadow was eaten bare, as it had been the 2 years before. The next St. John's night, the middle son declared that he would succeed where his brother had failed. He too walked up at dusk, lay down in a barn, and waited. As darkness deepened, the same rumbling began, stronger than before. The earth shook, the boards rattled, the barn swayed like a ship in a storm. The lad's hair bristled, his heart thudded against his ribs. He thought only of escape. He bolted from the barn and fled down the hill, not stopping until he had burst through his father's door. And the next morning, once again, the meadow lay bitten down to the roots. Chapter 2. Boots keeps watch. The 3rd year the turn fell to the youngest son. Like so many youngest sons in old stories, he was nicknamed Boots, for he spent more time by the hearth than in the fields, with his feet stretched to the warm cinders. His brothers scoffed at the idea that he might keep anything safe. "You are the very man to watch the hay," they jeered. "You, who have done nothing your whole life but toast yourself by the fire." Boots listened, but their mockery slid off him like water off a duck's back. "I will go all the same," he said quietly. As evening gathered, he climbed the hillside to the meadow, stepped into the barn, and lay down on the hay. The boards were rough against his back, the smell of dried grass sweet and familiar. After a time, the barn began to tremble. Timbers groaned, the thatch rustled, the walls creaked so loudly that it seemed they would tear apart. "Well," Boots said to himself, If it is no worse than this, I can bear it." The shaking ceased, then began again, stronger. Dust flew, straw leapt, the very floor danced under him. "If it is no worse than this," Boots repeated, "I dare say I can still stand it." A third time the earth rumbled and the barn rocked so fiercely that Boots was tossed from side to side like a kernel in a pan. He clung to a beam and waited with teeth set. Then, suddenly, all was still. He lay for a while listening. The quiet deepened. At last he heard another sound, a steady tearing and tugging just outside the barn door, as though something grazed. Boots rose and crept to a crack in the wall. Peering through, he saw a sight that made him catch his breath. Outside stood a horse such as he had never imagined, huge and gleaming, sleek as a polished chestnut, its flanks round and strong. On the grass beside it lay a saddle and bridle, and a full suit of knight's armor made of bright brass, shining as though lit from within. "So," Boots thought, "you are the creature that eats our hay. We shall see about that." He took the steel from his tinderbox and flicked it over the horse's back. As soon as the spark touched its hide, the horse stood as still as stone, its wild power frozen. Boots stepped out quietly, stroked its neck, and found that it was now as gentle as a lamb. He saddled and bridled it, put on the brass armor, and swung himself into the saddle. The horse obeyed without a toss of its head. He guided it to a hidden hollow, known only to him, where trees grew close and the ground fell away into shadow. There he tethered the horse and hid the armor. At dawn he walked home, his clothes smudged with hay and dust. "How did you fare?" his brothers demanded. "You did not stay long in the barn, we can see that much. Lost your courage, did you?" "I lay there until the sun rose," Boots answered, "and saw and heard nothing worth speaking of. I cannot imagine what frightened you so." "Indeed," they scoffed, "we shall soon know whether you have watched the grass." They ran up to the meadow. To their surprise, the grass stood untouched, tall as a man's waist and thick as a mat. Yet, even with proof before their eyes, they refused to give Boots kinder words. Chapter 3. 3 Horses in Hiding. The next St. John's Eve came round, and the father again spoke of the hay. The elder brothers, remembering their fears, made excuses and kept silent. Boots offered once more to go. The evening unfolded as before. Boots lay in the barn. The first trembling began. This time the earthquakes were fiercer. The barn groaned so loudly that it felt as though the hill itself were shifting. But Boots, who had faced them once, stayed where he was. After the third and worst shock, silence fell. Then came the sound of grazing. Boots went to the crack in the door. There, larger and finer than the first, stood another horse. Its mane was like a river of dark silk, its coat so glossy it mirrored the stars. On its back lay a silver saddle. On the grass beside it rested a full suit of silver armor, brighter and more wondrous than the brass. "Ah," Boots murmured, "another of you." He cast the steel over its crest, and suddenly the horse became tame. He saddled, bridled, and rode it to his secret hiding place, setting the silver armor beside the brass. The next morning his brothers found the meadow lush as ever. Again they mocked him. Again he let their scorn slide away like smoke, asking them only to look for themselves. On the third St. John's Eve, neither elder brother dared go near the barn. Boots went alone, as before. The shaking that night was greater than ever. The barn walls swayed, the floor pitched under him. He had to dance from one side to the other to keep his footing, but he waited it out. When the quaking ceased and stillness settled, he heard the now familiar sound of a creature tearing at the grass. Through the chink he saw a third horse, bigger and more splendid than the other two together. Its coat glowed like burnished gold, its breath steamed in the still night. It already wore a golden saddle and bridle, and beside it lay a suit of armor, all of gold, burning with light. "Here you are at last," Boots said softly. "We have met 3 years running without my seeing your face. Tonight I know you." He threw the steel over its neck, tamed it in an instant, and led it away to join its companions in the hidden hollow. In the morning, the meadow's grass still rippled unbitten in the wind. His brother's jests fell on deaf ears. Chapter 4. The Hill of Glass. Now it so happened that the king of that country had a daughter of great beauty, and he had sworn that she should marry no man, save one who could ride up a certain hill that rose near his palace. This was no ordinary hill. It was made of glass, high and shining, so steep that it stood almost like a wall. Its surface was smooth as polished ice. Nothing could find a hold on it. On the very top of this glass hill, the princess was to sit on a golden chair with 3 golden apples in her lap. The king proclaimed throughout his own land and many far kingdoms besides that the man who could ride to the top and carry off the 3 golden apples should win the princess and half the realm. Now the princess was so lovely that any who saw her felt their hearts catch, whether they would or no. When word spread, princes and knights came riding from every direction, horses plumed and prancing, armor gleaming, each man certain that he, and he alone, would be the one to win her. On the first day chosen for the trial, the plain below the hill was crowded. People came from towns and villages, hobbling on sticks, carrying children, leaning from carts, all eager to see the attempt. Boots's 2 brothers put on their best clothes and set off with the rest. "As for you," they told Boots, "you shall not come with us. If people see us in the company of such a dirty changeling with cinders on his hands and soot on his clothes, they will only laugh." "That matters little to me," Boots replied. "I can go alone and stand or fall for myself." When the day's trials began, every prince and knight spurred his horse at the glass hill. But the moment a hoof touched that glittering surface, it slipped. Horses scrambled, slid backward, fell, and were led away trembling and lathered with sweat. Not one rider could gain more than a yard or 2 before sliding down again. As the afternoon wore on, both men and animals grew exhausted. The king was about to declare that the contest should be tried again the next day, when a stranger came riding from the far side of the field. His steed was the brass-bridled horse from the meadow, though no one knew it. He wore the brass armor that Boots had hidden away, shining bright as the morning sun. The crowd murmured. Some called out that it was useless to try. The hill had defeated every rider there, and many had sharper shoes on their horses than this unknown knight. The knight answered no one. He rode straight at the hill. To everyone's amazement, the horses' hooves gripped. Up they went, 10 yards, 20, 30, until the knight had ridden a full third of the way to the summit. Then, as if that were enough for one day, he turned his horse and rode quietly down again. The princess, watching from her golden seat at the top, had never seen such a rider. Something in her heart leapt toward him. As he turned away, she took one of the golden apples from her lap and tossed it down. It rolled along and dropped into the knight's shoe without anyone noticing. At the foot of the hill, the knight wheeled and galloped off so swiftly that no one could tell where he went. That evening all the princes and knights were summoned to the palace. The king asked them one by one to show the golden apple if they had it. None could. Boots's brothers came home full of tales. No one could mount the hill, they said, until at last a knight in brass came. He rode a third of the way up as if it were nothing. He could have gone higher, we are sure, but chose not to. Oh, he was a rider to see. How I wish I might have seen him, Boots said, stretching his toes in the ashes. Indeed, sneered his brothers. A fine companion you would have been for such a gentleman, black and grimy as you are. Chapter 5. Silver and Gold. The second day came. Again the brothers dressed in their best and refused to take Boots with them. Again the plain filled with spectators. Again the knights and princes tried, and again they slid and struggled without climbing more than a step or two. The king would have ended the day as hopeless, but he chose to wait a little, thinking of the knight in brass. At last a stranger appeared, mounted on a horse yet finer than the first, silver-bridled, mane tossing like white fire. His armor was of pure silver, gleaming so that the sunlight flashed blindingly from every plate. The crowd cried out, telling him he wasted his time. He did not answer. He rode at the hill, and the horse climbed steadily, higher and higher, until he had gone 2/3 of the way to the top. Then he turned aside and came down as smoothly as he had gone up. The princess felt her heart beat faster. This one I like even better than the first, she thought. If only he might reach me here. As he turned away, she cast down the second golden apple. It rolled, bounced, and slipped into his other shoe. He reached the bottom, spurred his horse, and vanished from sight before anyone could ask who he was. That evening all the knights and princes came once more before the king. He asked again for the man who held the golden apple. No one could produce it. At home, Boots's brothers could not talk enough. A knight in silver mail came today, they told him. He and his horse were white as frost. He rode 2/3 of the way up. The princess threw the second golden apple to him. Oh, how I wish I might have seen him, Boots said. Your head is as full of ashes as your hands, they laughed, as if you could judge such splendor. On the third day the same pattern repeated. Boots was told he could not come. He shrugged and stayed behind. The hill had grown no less steep. The glass was no less slippery. Riders flung themselves at it in all directions. None advanced more than before. The crowd settled to wait, murmuring about a knight in silver, but he did not appear. Instead, when the sun was beginning to decline, a third knight rode into view. He sat upon the golden horse from the barn, and he wore the golden armor that had lain hidden in the hollow. So bright were horse and rider that the very air seemed to shine around them. This time the onlookers were too amazed to shout warnings. They simply stared. The knight urged his mount forward. The horse sprang up the glass hill, as if it were level ground. Before the princess could even frame her wish, he was at the summit. He saluted her, leaned from the saddle, and took the third golden apple calmly from her lap. Then he turned and rode down, smooth and swift. At the base of the hill, he disappeared from their sight, as if the earth had swallowed him. That evening, Boots's brothers excitedly described what they had seen. Such a knight has never been born in this world," they said. "His mail shone brighter than the noonday sun. No one can compare with him." "I would have given much to see him," Boots murmured, poking the coals. "His armor shone more brightly than the sparks you play with," they scoffed. "Dirty creature, sitting in the ash pit, what can you know of such men?" Chapter 6. The Apples Revealed. The day after the third trial, the king summoned all the noblemen again, and then all the knights, to come before him and the princess. It was time, he said, for the man who had taken the golden apples to show himself. One by one they came, but none had anything to present. "This cannot be," the king said at last. "We all saw those apples borne away. Someone must hold them." So he ordered that every man in the kingdom, noble or simple, should come to the palace. They came in long lines, farmers in rough boots, merchants in travel-stained cloaks, shepherds smelling of hillside air. No apple appeared. At last, Boots's two brothers arrived. They were the last in the line. "Have all men now come?" the king asked. "All but our brother," they answered. "But he has not stirred from the ash heap these 3 days. He cannot have taken the apples." "That may be," said the king, "but he shall come like the rest." Messengers were sent. Soon Boots stood in the hall, still in his soot-stained clothes, the smell of wood smoke clinging to him. "How is this?" the king asked. "Have you the golden apples? Speak plainly." "Yes, your majesty," Boots replied. "Here is the first, and here is the second, and here is the third." He drew them from his pocket, bright as when they left the princess's lap. At the same moment, he flung off his ragged garments. Beneath them, he wore the golden armor, which flashed in the great hall like captured sunlight. A murmur ran through the crowd. "Yes," said the king, rising from his chair, "you are clearly the man who deserves my daughter and half my kingdom. You have done what no one else could do." The princess's eyes shone. She had known in her heart that the 3 riders were one and the same, and now she saw him clearly. Preparations for the wedding were made at once. Boots, the ash boy, became Boots, the golden knight. The horses of brass, silver, and gold were led forth. His brothers, now a little quieter, could not deny his courage. The wedding feast lasted many days. Music played, tables groaned with food, and laughter echoed through palace and courtyard. As for Boots and the princess, they sat side by side at the high table, the 3 golden apples resting before them like small suns. And if the guests have not finished feasting yet, perhaps they are still there, laughing gently as they remember how a boy from the cinders climbed a hill of glass. Closing reflection: quiet courage and hidden brilliance. The story of the princess on the glass hill shows us how strength and worth can hide under soot and silence. From the beginning, Boots is overlooked. His brothers mock him as lazy and dull. He sits by the fire while others stride about in fine clothes. Yet when the strange quaking comes, it is Boots who stays in the barn, not once but 3 times, steady where his brothers fled. He does not boast, he simply endures, listens, and acts when the right moment arrives. He captures not 1, but 3 magnificent horses, brass, silver, and gold, without telling a soul. He keeps his treasures hidden, waiting until they are truly needed. On the days of trial, he does not push himself forward or claim importance. He lets the proud princes exhaust themselves on the glass hill, then rides up quietly, each time a little farther, with the calm of one who has prepared in secret. The princess sees what others miss, From her high seat, she recognizes the same spirit in the 3 unknown knights and gives her golden apples to the one whose courage matches her own heart. The world judges by the ash on Boots's clothes. She judges by the light in his deeds. Perhaps as you rest after this tale, you can feel the parts of yourself that resemble Boots, the parts that others overlook or misunderstand, the quiet strengths that seldom show in conversation but appear when storms come. And perhaps you can also sense the glass hills in your life, those steep, slippery challenges that no amount of noisy effort seems to conquer, yet which may yield to patient preparation and a courage that does not need to shout. May you learn to trust your hidden horses, to keep faith with your own steady heart, and to remember that the one sitting humbly by the fire today may yet ride in golden armor tomorrow. This is your narrator, Ali, thanking you for listening and wishing you peaceful sleep, brave dreams, and the gentle certainty that true worth can shine through cinders and glass alike. For more stories that can help you relax, don't forget to like and subscribe.